We're looking at the weekly chart and a pretty good upward trend that was like losing a little bit of momentum during late May to mid-June. Now it seems like the momentum is coming back, though be careful that the volume is pretty high as of this moment. So it has been staying flat sort of since mid-April, and the level now is still lower than what we have seen in May. So that's one point to keep in mind. If the volume doesn't catch up, similar to what we've seen here, the chance that it's going to hit like continuing to make new all-time high may be limited. However, if the trend continues, what we are seeing now, and why I have put it into the title, would it hit over 130k? Let's look at this. So if I draw a box, you know these upward trends, right? If you have been following my sessions, these won't be foreign to you. You should be familiar with these boxes. Much like this blue box that's like pretty much bracketing the entire price trading range since actually early last year or late December 2023. So 1.5 years now, for over 1.5 years, we are still in this box. So within this box we see multiple like kind of mean I want a box, not a line. So slight decline and then crazy shoot up, this very narrow shoot up, and then another round of decline, and then now we're in the next leg upward. And in terms of candlestick analysis, this is like a bearish sign when we have such a flag that people are kind of expecting this to, the price to fall outside or fall below this box at some point in time. So if that's the case, what or when would that be, right? So if I bracket the current price range, so if I change it to a line chart, basically I want this box to bracket the whole movements. So if the price continues to move upwards, that's where like somewhere around 133 to 135k. So that's why I put in the title, like, would it be possible for the price, if it continues to go upward, it may not be a straight line, it may come like go up and down, but if it lingers along the top edge of the blue box, even if it stays within the yellow, so basically I'm looking at this particular area that the price has a higher potential to move around, so it can go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and then eventually somewhere outside of the box. So either outside of the blue or outside of the yellow. But before that, it may hit this ceiling that's crossing both the blue and the yellow. However, the timing would be next week if the force is strong enough to push it to that point. That point is around 131k. However, if it takes longer time to reach this blue edge, that's when it's got a possibility that it reaches 135k or even all the way to 140k over here before it breaks outside of this triangle. So you see this blue line and the yellow line is forming a triangle. So when the price edges upward towards this triangle, it has to break out either way. But like you notice in the candlestick analysis, this is an ascending triangle, so you can go take a look at and see what's the textbook definition and remember, textbook definition is only textbook definition. There are always exceptions, so don't trust it like 100% or 200%. So here, we've talked about why it's like 130 or 135 or 140k. Then, if we look, return to the Wyckoff chart or Wyckoff method and take a look. A few months back, I've talked about two scenarios that we're looking at, right? So the blue, I want to change its color as well. So the blue ones were like a more likely scenario back then. We have discussed with some of you in the comments, video comments, and I also mentioned this yellow scenario. So this yellow scenario is that was still at an early stage that I mentioned. There's a chance that this chunk of activities was actually just the PSY, preliminary supply period, this fluctuation over here, instead of this mini distribution phases. So now when the current leg start to develop, it seems like the yellow scenario is more sound compared to the other one. Of course, we can't rule out the blue one yet, because this upwards after distribution can still be valid, even like it lost a little bit of momentum here. So this can still be the last peak of this distribution cycle. So we've got a very crazy 3 stages from buying climax to upwards and upwards after distribution. So this scenario still can hold true. However, we've got this, not the blue one, this yellow scenario over here where the PSY period lasted for like half a year in 2024, and then the buying climax was December last year. What we have seen, the retracement during March this year, was the automatic reaction. That's where the support line was at 74k. You still remember that drop, I believe. It was around the tariffs period. It dropped to that point, and then now it's getting another leg up to the upwards. So since this is still developing, we don't know how high that would go yet, but I've already mentioned in the beginning, looking at the trend boxes, this 130k ceiling, it's to 130 to 140, it's a possibility over there. So this is the big picture of where we are now, or Bitcoin is now, combining both this trading zone analysis as well as the Wyckoff stages. So one question you would ask is obviously, if the yellow scenario is true, like if I move it a little bit to the edge, if the yellow scenario is true, does it mean there is still a possibility for an upwards after distribution to appear? Absolutely. So that can be the case, given the backdrop that Bitcoin has no issue, is still healthy, is still developing, and adoption is still strong. Then there may be an upwards after distribution. So last time there wasn't one. So after the buying climax and second test, the price came down to a sign of weakness and then pump up to an upwards, and then eventually it died down to the accumulation between 2022 to 2024. And now, since October 2023, it has been climbing. If the yellow scenario is true, when assuming it touches the top edge of the blue box, right, it may have a little bit of retracement. It can be landing on the support line defined by this yellow buying climax at around 105k, or it can get back to the level. If we look at here, it landed to somewhere near the first sign of weakness, or you can take the automatic reaction as reference. So it was the 75k we talked about. So that would be the retracement. let's say either one of that, let's take a deeper one. When it comes to the rebound or the climb to the upwards of the distribution, if it really takes that long into the first quarter or early second quarter next year, that height, if I extend this box further, that price would be, let's say if it hits here and then comes back down somewhere and it climbs again at similar slope. So look at these slopes, right? One here, another here, just similar, like parallel lines. This point would be 160k, assuming the timeline is more or less in this range. It's just wild guess, but like I know a lot of you asked about it last time when we have seen the buying climax as well as the upwards. You guys put in the comment and ask, would we see an upwards of the distribution and where would it be? So if the yellow scenario plays out, 160k would be a possible scenario. So going to the daily chart after we see the big picture, very busy chart after we plug in the daily Wyckoff analysis. Currently, after the second test, second test, even the daily is showing a leg up to the upwards. Currently, there's a little bit of pressure. You see this wick. Let me enlarge it. So you see this wick over here. So some people has possibly set some selling orders at around 118k. That's why we see this wick over here. However, if we look at the volume, it's kind of heavy over here, supporting the boost upward. And if that continues, that's when we would see the 130k to 135k scenario. So as of this moment, it's still within the distribution range for at least for the actually for both weekly and daily, but they're at different level obviously. So this one we are looking towards the finishing of an upwards and potentially a development of an upwards of the distribution. Here, this upwards is going in sync with the weekly, and the ceiling over here you see is the same as what we have seen in the weekly as well. Though for the daily, there is a chance for the fluctuation to happen within the daily because it happens more frequently. It may go sideways and get a momentum before it goes up and hit the actual upwards on the weekly chart. So that's why I said earlier the 130 to 140k range would largely depend on how quickly this evolves. If it goes up very quickly, then the ceiling may be lower and there would be early retracement before it tests a new high. So as of now, both weekly and daily are going through a distribution cycle, and it's somewhere at, I would say, mid-late stage. If we're going to see the upwards of the distribution, obviously that would be, we're still at the mid stage kind of, or 2/3 of where it should be for the full cycle. However, an upwards of the distribution may not always happen, so it's tricky. It can be 60% for that path now, or maybe we're at 90%, 80-90% before the final drop comes. So it will be exciting to see what's going to happen. But for now, enjoy the price surge and hopefully you have made some gains.